I'm Anna, the Yarn Randomizer, and this is the 16th of September, and this is episode 37 of the Yarn Randomizer. And I'm going to peek over there every so often while I check my notes, and this is a knitting podcast, which will be self-evident after you watch for a bit. And I wanted to say welcome to folks who stumbled across my podcast. Glad to have you here, and welcome back to folks who've already been watching and are subscribed and are coming back. I really appreciate it. And then on Instagram, where you can find me, is I am the Yarn Randomizer on Instagram and in Ravelry, and also in Gmail. And I am also have a spread shop link down below that has the name The Yarn Randomizer, and I have a mailing address down there too, so for when I send things out. So now, let's see. I gotta look at my notes again. Why randomizer? I didn't bring my bucket of chips over here, but I can show you one. I pick my yarns for the most part randomly out of my stash with these little numbered chips. And I have a whole bucket full of them that represent all the yarn that's in the closet over there. And so every once in a while I have my husband pull a number out of there, and I have to figure out what to do with that yarn. Now, I am definitely a yarn first kind of person. I see yarn I like, I'll buy a certain amount of it and figure out what to do. There's occasions where I will look for yarn for a specific project, but it's definitely usually the other way around. I find a yarn I love first, and then I figure out what I want to do with it. So I have collected a nice collection of yarn that I am working on reducing and not doing a great job of. So, and to that end, there will be a de-stash for folks if they're interested later on. And so stick around for that. But otherwise, please like and subscribe, and we'll get right to it. So what I'm wearing. Okay, so what I'm wearing is a vest called Sleeveless by, I'm just trying to see what the heck, I turned off my phone. Okay. All right, let's get to it. This is the vest called Sleeveless, and this is by, it's spelled L-O-N-E, maybe it's pronounced Loni Kjeldsen. And again, I'm probably not pronouncing that correctly, but it's this really nice vest pattern, and it's very simple. And it ended up really nice. And the funny thing about this pattern is I finished this a little over 2 years ago, and it sat in my finishing basket for all this time. And I can't even tell you, again, it's one of those things that happens. Don't know why. I had collected a lot of things in my finishing basket, and we'll talk about that more later, about weaving in ends every day. But I finally wove in all the ends on this, and I blocked it, and I think it turned out great. And now it's made with two different yarns. It's a Lorna's Laces Shetland sock in ruby, and then it's held with a lace, so it's a sock yarn held with a lace yarn, but not a fuzzy lace yarn. It's a very fine smooth lace yarn that's alpaca, but it's Misty Alpaca hand paint lace in the Morocco spice. And so what it did was it brought in a lot of the yellows kind of variation in the reds, where the underlying red varied from kind of medium red to dark red. So they kind of played together in an interesting way. And you can see I've definitely got some sort of pooling going on there, but I'm really happy with how it turned out. The amazing thing about this vest is just the absolute, I don't know if you can tell, but it's got the most amazing kind of springiness to the resulting fabric after I made it, which kind of surprised me using that lace alpaca yarn, but it's just incredibly springy. It has rolled seams for the collar and the sleeves, and it's got these, there's two different types of braids. There's a Latvian braid, which is a bigger braid, more stands out more, and then this is what's called a Vickel braid, if you can see the detail here. So there's basically a diagonal, well, sorry, not diagonal, looks like a horizontal row of knit stitches there that goes all the way across the fabric, and it's on the bottom as well. And I tried a couple of different methods for making Vickle braids, and I like the one on the bottom. See if I can hold this up here, and how it turned out a little better than the one on the top. The one on the top's a little looser, so I would recommend this more standard approach than this alternate approach that I tried. But otherwise, I'm really happy with this vest, and it's such a simple vest. It's basically some, I think, 3x1 at the bottom, and then a 5x1 going up, and then back to a 3x1 at the top. Simple construction, produces just such a nice, I'm so happy with it, how it looks and everything. And I'm kind of like, why didn't I finish this 2 years ago? But whatever, it's done now. And so I actually only have one project left in my finishing basket, which we will talk about later. So that's what I'm wearing. Now, as far as whips, it's been an interesting couple of weeks. I've primarily devoted attention to stuff well, we'll get to it. Okay. So the first thing is my oldest work in progress. The only thing that wasn't started, this year, is a sweater for my husband. Let me at least hold up this picture real quick. I'm attempting to make this motorcycle sweater, which has a long story behind it. But I'm working on this for my husband, and I'm finally, whoops, let's put this aside. I'm finally making progress on the intarsia area on the front. So I got the pocket, and so you can see here's this purl. They have 3 purl rows for the pocket, and then they have to knit a lining and join it in. And this is not going to be pretty showing you the back of this, but there's the pocket lining, which I'll be sewing down. And so I think that's going to turn out really nice once that things get kind of finished up in there. But that edge to the pocket is kind of cool. I had not seen that kind of approach before. And then now you can see this helmet that's coming together on this part on the right side of the front. And so I'm working on that. And I have to say that intarsia is not my favorite thing to do, particularly this intarsia is fiddly intarsia. And so I've joked before that I think they created these designs with no real mind to what needs to happen with respect to yarn management on the back. And so I've actually been cutting yarn and rejoining it when otherwise I would have had to kind of pull it a long way across the back. So it is different working on this thing. I think I'll stick in a couple of pictures of a couple other Mary Maxim patterns that I looked at that just had me cracking up. But yeah, they have this whole, it's kind of like they have the same sweater, but they have different artwork on it, depending on what the theme is supposed to be. And I don't think any of it gives a mind to real practicality with respect to how yarn management works on the back of something like this. So I'm kind of feeling my way through it. I'm not a big intarsia knitter to begin with, and then just trying to find the balance and how to make it work has been interesting, but it's getting there. So I am going to get this right front finished before next time, and I'll get a start on the left front then. But it's an interesting project, quirky. It'll be hilarious when my husband finally gets to wear it and everything. Oh, and you know what? I skipped to works in progress, and I guess I'll still consider this a work in progress. I'm trying to figure out when to cover it, and I'll cover it now, and also keep my computer awake. Now, the other thing I kind of had sort of marked as finished, but then brought it back into rotation, was this bird. Now you can see that I've created these two. The pattern is actually for leaves, but I made 2 small ones, and I'm going to sew those down as the wings on the bird, and I think they work pretty well. I haven't sewn them down, I've just kind of pinned them in place right now. So this, oh, you know what, and the motorcycle sweater, all the details for all these projects are linked below, and so if you're curious about the yarn or anything like that, pattern, everything, it's all linked down there. Oh, excuse me. Now this little bird pattern I've altered a lot, and I've talked about how I've altered it in my project, but I've also included the pattern I used to make these little wings. Now originally it had kind of a lacy area up here, but I've knitted through the back of the loop for all the yarn overs here so that they pull together. And I shortened the pattern quite a bit, and I'll add that detail to the project as well. But I think it's just, all I need to do is get these attached, finish this kind of white patch that I'm making on the front, and this thing is done. I've got some crowns. I'll put in a picture of it with a crown on that I have for it. But once I get these on and that patch done, it's going to be sent in the mail down to Austin, Texas for my middle son. This was a request of his for a lady friend of his. So we'll see how she likes that. But yeah, so that's this little, the pattern is called Toy Birdie Knitting Pattern, but I've altered it an awful lot. All right, so that's where that one's at. Now, the next thing is my year-long pattern, which I started on January 1st, and it is Stephen West's Slipstravaganza Blanket. Now, this thing has been, it's relatively large now. I'm keeping it in this big Woolleluya bag that came from Field. I think it was Field Bags. Was it? I think that's the name. I'll have to look. It's a company that isn't out there anymore. Oh, here it is. Fringe Supply. That's who it was. And they made the Field bag as well as these big kind of canvas bags. And I got that when I made my order for my fringe bag. But this is my Slipstravaganza, and give me just a second. I'm going to move my husband's sweater down. Oh, let's see if I can do this successfully here without making a huge amount of noise. There. Let's see, we'll put the little bird down there. And I think everything else can sit up here. Ooh, almost rolled off. Okay. So the biggest difficulty with this blanket right now is it's so big. I am more than 85, I think, 85% of the way through this. Let's see. Yes, more than 85. So I'm coming up on 90% complete. And I've actually only got 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 rows to go on this pattern. And so let's get this out of here. Now, this is the outer edge of it. And so it's these, at this point, we're doing these chevrons. And you can see I've made it through the first, so there's the triangles, and then there's the first 3 chevrons in the white, cotton candy, and cherry. And now I've finished the white, and I'm on the next cotton candy chevron. So there'll be that to finish, and then one more cherry chevron, and then it'll be, I think, 1 or 2 rows of the coffee color again, and then a I-cord bind off all the way around, 16,056 stitches around. I think that's the right number. Yes, 16,000. That would be insane. 1,656 stitches. 16,000. How long of a needle would you need for that? Okay, so this thing is just gotten huge. And you can see there's the middle of it. So it's twice that length, you know, all the way down. So it's become quite a, I think the biggest problem with this pattern is just managing it. This knit is managing it at this point. But I get in my 1/3 of a row a day. So I do about 542 stitches a day on this. And it just has built up over the year into this huge blanket. And I'm so looking forward to casting this off. Now, it is the 16th of November, so I've got another blanket I'm planning to do. I believe it's the Bubble, let me see what the name of that is. Favorites. I have a misbehaving mouse at this point. I'm going to have to do something about. I don't know if this has ever happened to you, but my the wheel on the mouse is not behaving correctly, and so it will go the opposite direction of what you expect it to go. I cannot, oh, it must be in my library here. But it's got the word bubble in the name. There it is, Bubbly Blossoms Blanket. So I'll put a picture of that there. This is my plan for 2025, is to work on that blanket through the course of the year in the same way I've worked on this blanket. I've already got the yarn for it, and I'm working on my spreadsheet. So before, in the next episode, in 2 weeks from now, I will have the spreadsheet completed. And you can see, if you look up the pattern, it has all the yardage requirements and everything. But my spreadsheet will help show how much I'm going to work on it each day, and kind of target dates for each section of the blanket. So if you're interested, I know it's a huge project and everything, but if you're curious, you can take a look at the spreadsheet and that kind of stuff. But it's really made it, this way of approaching it has made it so that I can do something that seems a little like just a little overwhelming. Like, how do I do a blanket that size? That's going to take forever. And cut it down into bite-sized sections, because 541 stitches, that's less than 10 rows on a sock, right? And so it's really not a huge daily demand. All right, so this big behemoth is made with Lankava Maya Neo, which I may not be pronouncing correct, but it's their DK, and I get it from Finished Knits, and I picked it because it was reasonably priced yarn and mostly wool, like 75, like a typical sock yarn. This is a DK, but it's 75% wool and 25% nylon. So yeah, oh, there it is. So that is going to get finished, and I'm so excited about that. It's just going right along. Now, put this over there. All right. Now, I have neglected my cobblestone sweater, my Rhinebeck Rumi socks, and my Felix cardigan for some shiny new cast-ons that I had progress. I've cast on one since last time, and the other one you saw last time. But yeah, it's just, one of those things. What are you in the mood to knit? You end up grabbing. I think the main thing is my cobblestone sweater is at a point where I need to cast on the next sleeve, so there's always that shift that always gives me there's a little impedance with a shift like that in a pattern for me each time. And then the Felix cardigan is just kind of a lower priority since I'm trying to get the cobblestone done, but I need to work on it to get it done. But what I've been working on is my Satama shawl by Vera Valimaki, and I have gotten through, and for those who don't know, this is my pegboard here in my room, and this is from IKEA, and I use this to hold some variety of tools and things, and that looks loose there, there we go. And it's, well, what the heck, I'm drawing it, Rayfreeze. I use it to hold works in progress. It's kind of a handy way to have my active projects up there. All right, so this shawl is a combination. You're using 2 yarns, and you're doing some brioche and some garter stitch. So I will hold it in the way that it will go. So you can see this upper section here in the first color in the garter, and then you can see the next section in the brioche, and the multicolor yarn is the background yarn. So the gray is on the top here. And then you go to, there was a series of, let's hold it the other way so you can try to see it. There was a series of short row garter stitch rows, let's see. And those were done in garter with the contrast color. And now I'm working a single color brioche, let's hold that up there, with the contrast color. And that's about a quarter of the way done. And so there'll be another about 12 rows of brioche to go, and then it will go back to this same 2-color brioche for a while, and then finish with some more garter. And so this has been a really nice pattern to knit. And the squish factor on this is out of this world. It's 2 single ply yarns. I'm using some Madeline Tosh Merino Light and Great Gray Owl, and then some skinny singles from Hedgehog Fibers in Oracle. And so it's got some nice neon pops in there along with a couple of colors of gray. And so I think this is coming together really nicely. And I'm really looking forward to having this one complete. Really nice 2-color shawl, nice usage. And you look at the examples of the pattern, there's some really nice high contrast ones, and then there's other ones that are kind of this more subtle kind of mixing of 2 colors. But yeah, so it's been fun to work on. And I made a mistake in the initial brioche where I started forgetting to do the increases on the left side. You know, we start a row with an increase and then you're supposed to do an increase at the end of the row, and then I forgot it a few times, so I had to completely redo that first brioche. Ooh. And so I've been making sure, like I have a page with counts and everything, so that every so often I verify, okay, do I have all the stitches I'm supposed to have right now? Okay, I do. So I don't have to do that again. But yeah, very nice pattern and really nice yarns to work with, and I'm loving the result. It's just going to be so sweet when it's done. So nice to wear. All right, so that's that one. And then the only other thing to go over, and oh, it's got to be here. That's right. It's on my works in progress board. This one has ended up taking the place of what I normally do with a sock yarn, a sock pattern, you know, where I carry it with me everywhere. Well, this has been my carry it with me pattern. And this is Stephen West's Brio Clava, and I want to bring out, oh, there it is. So I had one of these I made for myself earlier this year. So here you can see it. It's a nice balaclava with a nice face opening, ribbing at the next, and then 2-color brioche that is in a fuzzy yarn and a solid yarn. So this one is... it's the same combination that this one that I'm working on is, in that it's the DK that I'm using is Lima from Drops Lima from Garn Studio, and the fuzzy yarn in between is, let's see, it's alpaca, brushed alpaca silk. Is that how it's named? Yes, brushed alpaca silk. And so this green color here is olive, I think, olive mix, and then this other color is moss green. And so it's been nice, again, a low contrast situation there. And if you look on the inside, you can see the moss color kind of more prominently. And I'm about halfway through the length for up to the top of the head, and then I'll work the flap along the top. Some of the things I'm doing differently in this pattern than what's called for is he calls for casting off these stitches on the front here before you make the rest of the head. I've kept those live on both of this pattern and this one I'm working obviously here. And then the other thing is that when I do the top, you're basically called to cast off and then work a flap forward and then sew it. I'm allergic to sewing when I don't have to do it. And so to my mind, this is effectively like a flap on a heel here. So particularly on a toe up type arrangement. And so I just finished that top like a heel flap. And I go back and forth doing decreases and slowly consuming all the stitches along either side. So yeah, I'm more than halfway done on this, and this feeds that need I had to knit a hat. And so there it is. And so that's making good progress. You can see the decreases along the side there. That's the only complicated part. This would be a great pattern to learn some brioche from. Maybe. I think the only issue would be using a fuzzy yarn kind of clouds the issue, so to speak. And then having the decreases there makes it a little more challenging, but otherwise, the main part of it is pretty straightforward. All depends on how comfortable you are with brioche. I think it's really important to understand the construction. I'm sure there's some great repair, like how to fix brioche things out there. I've had to pick down a couple of times, not on this one, but on the previous one, and it's never been a big problem as long as you understand. I think in 2-color brioche it's easier than it is with single color, because you can tell which are the layover strands and which ones are the ones that are supposed to be worked as a full stitch and everything. But yeah, that's working out great. And this will be for my husband. He loves the color green, and so that's why I picked it out for him. All right, so that's it for my works in progress right now. Pardon me. And so the other thing I want to talk about, I've talked about each time before, is my task for weaving in 10 ends a day. And I have to say I've kind of fallen off the wagon a little bit, but we'll follow up on that in just a moment. But I did finish my City Limits sweater. So you can see the whole thing here, top to bottom. And so it turned out great. I've got all the ends woven in. I blocked it. I think the only things I would say, might wear this for next episode. My only commentary would be, I kind of like a closer neck. And this is a little more open than I would generally like. But it is, I think, how the pattern's designed. And then I think I made the body longer than I would have liked. I think I would have preferred a shorter body, but it came out just fine. It's definitely a big, cozy sweater, that's for sure. The only thing is, because I made the body the length I didn't quite get to make the sleeves as long as I'd like. I'm pretty sure they'll relax a little bit over time. They're really... So I'm wearing a turtleneck right now, this pullover. And it's a perfect example of what happens with me with long sleeves in clothes. So if you can see this, the fact that with this, even when I stretch my arm out and stuff, I'm like at least a couple inches short on length. And so I tend to need longer sleeves. It's interesting. I found out the reason later as to why I have a long inseam as well, where... was it, I think it's a 32 and a half inseam, and then I have these arms, and that's because I matured later. So I guess until you hit puberty, your growth plates in your arms and legs keep going for a while, and so that's what happened with me. And so these sleeves aren't quite as long as I'd like, but I'm pretty sure because this is all super wash, this will have a tendency to relax over time. Maybe I'll hold this up like this. But yeah, this is City Limits by Tanis Lavalley. And I worked with a combination of stitched together yarns and I think Barocco's Ariel. I think that's their mohair yarn. And it all came together really beautifully. And I recommend going to look at the project because I pulled a whole bunch of different yarns from my stash that looked like they were meant to go together. It's crazy, but they all ended up working together really nicely. So and this was finished like 4 years ago. And again, is brain freeze on finishing this up. Like, why the heck did I wait so long? This is a great sweater. What the heck? But that's what happens sometimes. It disappears into my finishing basket. And if I'm having a little bit of brain freeze about how to, like with that sweater, the finish pattern's normally supposed to have the wrong side out, the reverse stockinette. But I preferred how the stockinette looked, and I kept trying to think about how to make it reversible. And I finally just decided to not struggle with that and just finish it up. And that kind of took all the brakes off on finishing that, and then blocked it, got it dried really fast, and so happy with it. So if you're having if something's blocking you, it's kind of like figure out how to just like, what is it that's blocking you, and make a decision and get going on it, because it really feels good to have it done. Now, as far as 10 ends a day, the amazing thing is now I am down to only a single project that requires ends woven in. And I want to talk about this a little bit. Let me get to the side where I've done more of the weaving in. Okay, so this was Jimmy Bean's Wool Annual Shawl Club for this year, and it was only for the first 6 months. You got all the yarn that you needed to make it, and it did a lot of changing colors. Now, you can see, I think somebody calculated there were over 200 ends to weave in at the end of the project or something. So you can see along this one edge here, there's a bazillion ends to weave in there. It's very scientifically accurate, bazillions. And I've done it along this edge here. Now, the one thing I want to comment about, now I'll block this out and it'll end up nice and everything. The real difficulty in weaving in this pattern is you have all these yarn changes at the end, and you've got this garter stitch band that has this lace kind of yarn over separation, so there's only 2 strands of yarn in each of those connections between the garter and the main body of the sweater. Now, you can't weave in all these ends just in this garter band, so you have to kind of get them back to the main body of the shawl, and that's just a pain in the butt. So because I think if it had been, instead of doing a yarn over there, if it just done an additional garter stitch and done that all without having a lace, you know, that set of lace holes along the edge, weaving this in would be so much easier. But as it stands, to bring these ends back and weave them in, I have to work through that little little twisted set of strands there that attach the garter band to the main body of the shawl. And that's definitely a pain in the butt. I would recommend to anybody doing this going forward is to dispense with those that lace detail on the outer ends if you want to do all these color changes and have those ends to weave in. Definitely, it has made it more difficult to weave these ends in than any shawl I've worked on before, I think. Unless you're talking about super lacy, like all lace all over kind of shawl. But if it's a solid color, you can still kind of make it because you can just do a little following of the pattern. But yeah, this was definitely, has not been fun doing it. Not like I like weaving in ends to begin with, but this has made it even more kind of annoying. So I kind of fell off on my weave in 10 a day after I finished my sweater, and I had the vacation going on and everything. So I've been slowly catching up on it again, working my way through this, and I will get there. So my goal is to have it done next episode. Am I going to commit to that? Maybe in 2 episodes. We'll see. We'll see how I do. But it'd be great because it would be getting the last item out of my finishing basket that's in there. So yeah, so I'm really excited how well weaving in 10 ends a day worked as I stuck to it. And so I highly recommend it. And this will be a lovely shawl when it's done for sure. It's got a great combination of colors. Let me at least hold this out for you. And so you can see the dark from the dark at the end. So it started from the middle and worked out to the end. So you made the 2 initial triangles, and then you joined those 2 triangles and worked the 2 wedges out. The pattern called for you to cast off these triangles. I didn't do that. I just worked the stitches, left them live and worked from there. And I think it turned out great. And in fact, probably more flexible as a result. All right, so that's that one. And then let's see, what else have I got to do? That is, oh yeah. So that's my weave in 10 a day and what that's been doing for me. Now, I wanted to talk about, this doesn't fit in anywhere else, but I'll have something like this comes up, odds and ends. And so I had made this muscle burrow hat for my husband a couple years ago or something like that. And it is made out of superwash. And I can guarantee you I made it too big to begin with And it fit, it's just too big. I mean, this is a huge, huge hat. And it does fit him, but it's just too loose. There's no negative ease in it. And there's a little positive ease to it when he wears it. And so I've been kind of unhappy with how that's worked out. I have my own muscle burrow hat. I should have brought that here to wear. And you want to have some negative ease with that. And it works out great. Now, you know, I could completely undo this. So here it is in its form where it's untucked into itself. I could undo that, but I was, you know, I found I wasn't crazy about how this pooled and everything. And so my idea is to frog this and knit a new hat for my husband. I'll knit him another muscle burrow out of another yarn. And what I'm going to do with this is unravel it. I'm going to frog it, and I'm going to use it double and use it to make an, make sure I remember the name of this right, the teeny weeny beanie. And I'll put in a picture. And so I think if I double it up, I'll get kind of avoid some of the pooling that happened with this. Although this pooling's kind of interesting, but it's not what I wanted to happen with this. And I'll get a different result and see how that turns out. So this I am going to frog, reclaim this yarn, and it will go back into the stash with the goal of becoming a teeny weeny beanie. So there's that. So sometimes you take even your old knits and undo them to make new objects. All right, so I think that's all that stuff. So I'm doing my Yarn Randomizer pick before I get to acquisitions now. I had changed kind of the order. So I'm going to grab that. Now, so my yarn pick this time, as you saw from the beginning, was number 232 out of my spreadsheet. And that ended up being these big skeins of yarn. I have 3 of these, and so this is Lion Brand Fisherman's Wool, and it is an Aran weight yarn, and this is the color, I think it's a brown tweed. Where do they have that on? Here it is, brown heather. So this is the brown heather, and I got 3 of these. These are 8 ounces each, so it's like more than twice. So it's 227 grams. So it's more than 2 regular balls of yarn, because most of the time manufacturers sell in 100-gram skeins at the high end. And so I actually, where I'd heard about this yarn was actually watching Wool Neil's Hands, I believe is the name of the podcast, and I saw her talk about it and I was intrigued. This is 100% wool. Probably not, you know, it's not going to be your softest wool. This isn't listed as merino or anything like that, just wool. And but I really liked it for the idea of a really nice outer sweater. So I picked up 3 of these, and again, because the price is good too. If I look at this if I look at Fisherman's Wool, Lion Brand, let's see. Yeah, so at Joann, they have it for $9.79 for one of these. So it's like getting, if this is 2 1/4 ball, so you're talking about paying less than $4.50 a skein for a Aran weight wool. And so that's part of the attraction, is inexpensive. And it'll make a good outer sweater, not probably an against the skin sweater. But what I did was I picked up 3 of these, and my idea was to combine them. I picked up 1 of this oatmeal color, and what I have in plan for this, and this is very late in the year, and I already have some sweaters in the queue, and this is for a oh gosh, here I am drawing a blank, Fern and Feather by Jennifer Steingess. So I have that, put that picture in there. I think these would look amazing in that. And so that's the plan. It's going into the queue, is that this late in the year, doing my sweaters in order out of my queue, I am absolutely guaranteed, I don't think I'll be getting to this, But who knows, maybe I'll go crazy and decide to jump way down in my queue, but I kind of doubt it. I know what my next 2 random picks are because I've had my husband pick those already, and I think there is a high likelihood I will skip to those because they ended up one picking a single skein and one picking some leftovers. I'm really surprised at how little leftovers have been picked out of the Yarn Randomizer this year, or single skeins for that matter. But they may end up getting cast on even if this doesn't. So there's more adventure to come. As towards the last week of December, one of the things that will happen is I'll be rebooting my randomizer for next year, and that means at the end of the year when midnight strikes on the 31st, my queue gets emptied out and we'll start fresh, and you'll get to see that as it progresses through the year. And so with that done, we are down to, we'll talk about stash management and a giveaway in a moment. In the meanwhile, I want to show off, do a long reach here, some yarns I've gotten. So Instagram is evil. I'm going to joke around about that because you end up seeing things you really like. And what happened was Laughing Cat Fibers showed this yarn. And let me see if I can hold that up for you to see. So this is called It's Okay to Be a Unicorn. And it has got these neon colored neps in there in this glorious pink and purple variegated yarn, and it's an absolutely ridiculous color. But I got 2 skeins of the DK, and in the long run I will do some kind of accessory out of this. But I thought it was so cute, and I love the neon neps in it, and yeah, it is really cool. So this is Laughing Cat Fibers. She used to be an Ohio dyer, now she's a Kentucky dyer, but I still get yarn from her, and this was just an amazing combination of fiber and color. I loved it. So 2 skeins of that. And then I'm a subscriber to the Barn Box from Bare Naked Wools, and they came out with their yarn. Talk about a contrast, okay? All right, so this is a New Zealand, 100% New Zealand wool in a sport weight. Yes, and there are 375 yards of this. And the Barn Box, she gives you a choice out of, I think, 9 patterns, one that you can pick, you get for free, of Ann Hansen's patterns. And then you can also get, for people who are members, can get an additional skeins of yarn for a discount as well. I decided I'll just go with this single skein of this this time. And I'm actually putting my Barn Box subscription to sleep for a while, so no monthly subscriptions for a while, partly because I looked at stash management, which I had not been tracking closely enough. And so I have really bought more than I should this year. And I guess no real excuses for it other than, you see yarn and you like it. And so I will continue to destash on the regular, but try to be a little more measured in purchasing going forward, although I can't make any big promises on that. But what I thought I would destash is this Apple Fiber Studio. And this is a really beautiful colorway called Malala, named after the woman who went through so much and everything. And I think it is just a beautiful variegated yarn. And so if you are interested in getting your mitts on this yarn, I would say comment Apple in your comments, weave it into your comments somehow, and I'll have this figure out who it goes to for the next episode. But there it is, yes, that beautiful Apple Fiber Studios yarn. So yeah, so to make some progress on recovering from my yarn binging this year, I definitely do not want to end up in a sable situation, stash availability beyond life expectancy or something like that. And so I'm going to work to be a little bit more rigorous about, man, I've been getting a variety of deliveries. We'll see what that is. But enough with the distractions. So I'm going to try to be a little more rigorous about adhering to my twice as much out as in rule and everything. And so otherwise, working on balancing my stash. I've got a variety of videos that I'm working on, but with this, and I definitely will get another video out in a week. I'm going to decide what I will cover, but it'll be either tips or techniques, either for Ravelry. I put one up last week about how to look at patterns recommended for a given yarn, and also to see how a colorway that you have, how it's going to knit up. And so I have that, that was my previous video. And so I've got spreadsheet videos to make, construction videos to make, just a variety of things to do, and I'll get one of those out in a week. Otherwise, in the meantime, it's a little gloomy here. I hope you're having weather you like where you're at, and I hope you're experiencing a lot of kindness in your life and giving it in return and taking good care of yourself. And in the meantime, enjoy your knits.